And welcome back to Mixed Media Live. Oh no, Ben's not on the screen right now. I'll get that fixed in just a moment. In the meantime, Nathan, do you want to introduce yourself while I scramble to fix this?
Okay. You want to introduce the podcast, I guess? All
Sure.
right. Welcome to Mixed Media. Welcome to Mixed Media. This podcast is about gaming, movies, music, and the intersection between all those three things. Today, we'll be doing two topics. We'll be doing a music topic, and we're doing a game-related topic. Um, Movies, everyone, since he took up the entire time last time, talking about the Alec Baldwin incident. Um, but he did say he had some things to say about it. Some new stuff or whatever. So I guess we'll introduce ourselves. So I'm Nathan. I'm a 3D modeler and a game developer.
I'm
Someone else
Ben
wanna-
Costello. I'm a flutist and a media composer.
And I'm Irving, and I just finished fixing the the stream. Sorry about that. And I'm a filmmaker and media entrepreneur. I own a company called Ariella. I forgot to put my hat on today, but you can check out my website. Oh, that way on the bottom right of the screen. It's the domain that link belongs to. So yeah, and yeah. So today we're going to be talking about two topics. Really, because I did a 3-part series basically last time, quasi by accident. A little bit long of a rant, but it seems as though people are enjoying it, which is pretty cool. So I've got some. If you're really curious and if you're around because you enjoyed that segment, I've got a few really interesting, odd, random things that have happened since I put that out. In addition to that information at the end when we go through news. It won't take me more than 10 minutes to go through, so I'm no use doing another segment on it. But it definitely is an interesting story, I will say, as the facts or the allegations sort of progress over time. But for now, we've got some more lighthearted topics than what we talked about last week. Yeah. Who wants to go first, by the way? Oh, actually, no. I gotta talk about our little housekeeping stuff. So we are streaming live, as you can see, on YouTube, Rumble, and Twitch. And the awesome thing about this right here that says YouTube, Rumble, and Twitch is that it is a live whiteboard, meaning I can scribble on it, doodle it on it. Hey, there it is, live like that. And you can do that too. And you can do that too by going to mixedmedia.locals.com. And I promise you, we will not be mad if you start roasting us. Whatever you want to do, but you got to become a member at mixedmedia.locals.com, and you'll get a link to draw on this live whiteboard for helping support us, as well as a plethora of other things. Some of those things are really valuable, I think, and I think anyone who has experienced us reviewing their work has said that it's been extremely valuable, and I agree. We put a lot of effort into those. So if you go to mixedmedia.locals.com, you'll see information about all the perks you get, including reviewing your independently made content, which is really cool. The other thing is, actually, before I go into the other thing, that live whiteboard is a privilege, not a right, though. So please don't do anything weird on there. If you do become a member right now or something like that, don't do anything weird. Or else then I'm going to have to kick you off the live whiteboard. But you can be mean. That is fine. You can be mean as you want. And that's pretty much it for housekeeping, actually. I don't think I have another thing. So who's going first?
Before we start, how are your guys' weeks?
Oh, yeah. I mean, for me, it's... I'm still again, it goes back to that thing where I say I'm going to do something, and then a month later, here I am doing the same things. Still trying to offload my schedule because certain things I can't really talk about because I'll be trashing certain people I work with are taking way too long. I'm trying to offload these things and trying to focus on myself again because I'm kind of tired of. I don't know. I feel like I've created a job for myself instead of a business, and I'm trying to get out of that mentality. So there it is. How about you guys?
You know, I don't.
Oh,
Oh,
go ahead.
okay. Yeah, I guess I don't know. I mean, it's been a kind of uh, normal week of like school and that sort of stuff. Um, I've have in the back of my mind. I know I mentioned a couple months ago this idea of like trying to come up with some music related to the Thrawn trilogy of Star Wars books, and I have some like ideas that are like in a much smaller scale, but that are kind of in the back of my head that I've been thinking about this week. But other than that, not too much.
That's cool.
For me, I've been testing out a new what do you call it? A new synthesizer actually, which is interesting. It's called Bespoke. It's a very strange synthesizer. It's like a synth DAW hybrid sort of thing. It's very feature rich for a synthesizer. It includes, I don't know, I don't even know if you should consider it synthesizer, because within itself it includes different synthesizers. So I don't know, but it's interesting. It's not something I could see myself making a full song with, because at least currently, it's meant for just like small loops and stuff like that. But it's interesting just to experiment with it and stuff like that. Just for like prototyping, makes it super easy. And yeah, and although you can tell it just came out, but it's a bit glitchy. Like currently, I have it open. I can't actually like, it's like minimized, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can't unminimize it. I don't know why. I'll have to close it and then open it again. But yeah, I don't know. I think it has to do with me hibernating my computer while it was open, and then I turned my computer back on, and now it doesn't unminimize anymore. But yeah. Also, I joined another game jam because I guess I like paint or something. I don't know, but I'm doing that now. Um, it's it is for actually for a club I'm in my school. So yeah, that'll be interesting. I'll share the results of that. I'm doing with the team too, which is a change of pace. So that's nice. And yeah.
Cool. Yeah, and yeah, we were a
So
little.
like,
Oh, go ahead.
I think I'm like lagging a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah,
on the
you're
screen
like
and stuff like that.
you've got like a weird stutter thing going on. I'm not sure why. I don't know if you're connected to like your 5G network or not, but it seems like there's like some internet
I'm
stuff
on.
going on.
I was having internet problems earlier. Actually, I was in a lecture, uh, online lecture, and the thing kept cutting out. So I guess it's on my end.
Mm. Yeah, it's a little bit. It's a little bit. Hopefully, it'll be okay. Um, yeah. But who wants to go first? We got. Oh, hey, look at that. We've got 4 people watching on Rumble. So hey, shout out to you guys. That's awesome. And all the rest of you guys who are out there on our other platforms, welcome to the podcast. The great thing about our podcast, since it's lively produced, is that you can comment. And normally we just integrate you right into the final podcast. So you get to interact and ask questions live, which is pretty cool. So yeah. Um, so yeah. Who's going first?
I don't really mind either way.
Okay, it
Mine's
doesn't.
not really long at all.
You,
Okay.
you can go first,
Just
Nathan.
if that changes things.
Okay.
All
You can
right.
go first.
Okay. So what was that?
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Sorry. uh, all right. My topic will be about Battlefront 2, and how I think it's so bad that it's good, almost sort of. I think that it has glitches and exploits in it that really enhance the experience if you know how to use them. Sometimes, not all the times. I'll get into the nuance of it, but yeah, that's the basic point. So I'm specifically talking within the context of a certain game mode within Battlefront 2 called Heroes versus Villains. If you don't know, Battlefront 2 is mainly a shooter um, created by DICE. Same people made Battlefield, so you know that kind of shooter, I guess. But the Heroes versus Villains game mode, which I'll refer to as HVV for now because that's the shorthand for it, is very different. So one of the sort of trademarks of Battlefront 2 is that not only do you get to play as, like simple stormtroopers and rebels and clone troopers, depending on what area you're playing, you also get to play as the heroes and villains, right? So people like Darth Maul, Rey, Darth Vader, stuff like that, right? And they're insanely powerful. But there's this game mode where it's literally just them. There's no troopers or anything like that. You just get to play as a bunch of heroes or villains battling against each other. And it's a whole different sort of vibe, and I actually prefer the game mode a lot more. But the game mode is riddled with bugs because the characters themselves are buggy, and we'll get into the bugs of every character in a second. So normally how the game, I guess the intended way the game is supposed to work is that, understanding that like most of the heroes use lightsabers. There are heroes that don't use lightsabers like Han Solo and Leia, but for the most part, I'm mostly talking within the context of lightsaber heroes. I really should be saying that lightsaber combat is enhanced by the glitches. The only glitch I can think of is Chewbacca has a glitch that I don't know if it makes it any better or worse, but whatever. I'll get to that later. So the way the game is meant to be played normally in a lightsaber combat sort of type of way is you have sort of three things you can do at any given time. You can block, which is done by, at least on PC, holding right click. And for every hit swing that you block, you take a certain amount of hit to your stamina, and when your stamina depletes, you can't block anymore. Alternatively, you can just do a proper attack by left clicking, and you do exactly what you think you do. You swing a lightsaber at the other person. And third thing you can do is use one of your abilities. So every hero, except Anakin, has 3 separate unique abilities that they can use. Anakin has 4. I don't know why, but he does. These abilities range from things like
He's the
force
chosen one,
pushes to
that's
force
why.
pulls to like apparently force pushes, force pulls, certain like blaster enhancements if you're playing as a blaster hero, stuff like that. The weird thing is, when I started playing Battlefront 2 and in HVV is like, I was like, how does it damage anybody? Because you hold right click and you block, right? And okay, I can attack them until their stamina decreases, but attacking it itself also uses stamina. So I was confused as to how I was meant to do this. So it's worth noting that when you attack someone from behind, they can't block it because they can't see you, right? That makes sense. So one of the ways to do damage is to attack people from behind. Also, I forgot to mention there's a dodge ability where you press Alt and your character does a little like dash in a direction, and you can use this to try to get behind people. That's sort of part of the way, part of the skill, right? So aside from getting behind people can be accomplished by dodging, or you do a swing where it is intended, but I guess the players realize this is a good thing. A thing you could do. Essentially, you just run at somebody, you jump and you do a 180 really quick, and then you can like hit them from behind if you're quick enough. It's weird because it's one of the a bit of a tangent here, but it's weird because that mechanic differs greatly in its usefulness whether you're playing on PC or console. Because on PC you can move your mouse really fast and you can do a 180 really fast. On console, you're gonna take a bit of a longer time to do a 180. That being said, the person who needs to block it also is going to take a bit of time to do it. It just looks weird when I'm watching someone playing on a console. And I'm like, your hook swings are really slow, but they still work.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then to do damage to people through blocks, there are certain abilities that will work through blocks. So for example, Obi-Wan's Jedi mind trick that works through a block. But things like a force push do not work through blocks. Something about a force shield, I don't know. I don't know Star Wars lore, so I could be wrong. I don't know. There are almost no abilities will do damage through blocks, except, I don't know if this is a glitch or not. Luke's will do damage through a block if you use a certain star card. A star card is a certain buff you can apply to a character. I have a feeling this is not intentional, but I could be wrong. But if you have this star card applied to Luke Skywalker, you have a force push, and it will do damage through the block. And it's actually useful because it doesn't do that much damage, but if someone's on low health and they're just blocking to try to regenerate health, then you just force push in the dead, right? Those are the normal conventional ways to do damage to people. I found this not too entertaining. Just essentially just trying to get behind people because I said before, abilities really won't do much damage for the most part. And and so it's just about dashing behind a person, and it's not that hard to defend against that once you get better at the game. So here's where the exploits come in, and first I'm going to talk about perhaps the biggest game changer in the entire game. So at some point, this exploit did not always exist. I believe this is before the time I started playing, but they changed the way that characters got stunned. They might have they might have removed stunning or something like that, something to that effect. But essentially, what happened is it introduced a mechanic called parrying. Now, in the game, you cannot normally parry anything, right? You can either block or you can attack. But what happened is, now if you're blocking, you hold right click, someone attacks you. If you time it right, you can attack them within a window where they cannot actually block your attack, your counter attack, your parry, right? So it's like a few dozen milliseconds of timing. It's not that easy to get once you start. Once you start practicing, you sort of figure it out. And it also differs per character, like depending on the character attack speed and their animations and stuff like that. It changes when the window is where you actually need to counterattack. This is not intended. This is definitely not a intended mechanic, but it is probably the most widely spread exploit that people use because it brings a lot more depth into the game. There's a lot more to consider, right? For example, a lot of people who play, say, Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker has a very good attacking stamina, which means that for every attack he does, he loses not that much stamina. So what people will do is they'll find somebody who has a low blocking stamina. I think like Darth Vader has a lower blocking stamina, and they'll just swing at him over and over again and just pressure him by just swinging, right? Well, counterattack, big advantage for you, right? You can no longer just die to a Luke who's just spamming clicking you, right? Because when people start spam clicking you, you can sort of you internally figure out the rhythm of their attacks, and at some point you just start counterattacking to the same rhythm, or you start parrying at the same rhythm, and then at that point it becomes trivial to kill them, right? So it really changes the way you have to think about the game. You can also do what's called a perfect parry as well. Perfect parry is like you only have a few milliseconds to execute this one, of like a timing window. It allows you to attack quicker after the block. I'm not good enough to do perfect parry, intentionally at least, but I can at least do normal parries. But yeah, they're hard to do, but definitely possible with practice. This is one of the things where, when I started playing the game, it's a pretty ubiquitous exploit that people use. I started playing the game, I was like, how do these people win it? How do these people like killing me? I'm just, I'm spam clicking, right? It looks like they're also spam clicking, but it turns out they just had well-timed spam clicks that I didn't realize. And it's a shame that this is not an intentional feature because the game will never teach you that. It'll teach you that's a thing that you can do because you're not supposed to be able to do it. But it's just something that, like, once you pass a certain level, everyone just figures it out eventually. I figured it out from my YouTube video, I'm pretty sure. And yeah, it's pretty much required. You just rage quit because you're failing to do any damage to anybody.
Are these matches ranked, by the way? Like, are these hero matches ranked?
No, they're not ranked. It's dumb. That's one of the worst parts about Battlefront, actually, is that, when you start, you can be level 1, and there's some level 100 dude who's like, he's a veteran at this game. I've been playing for a long time, and what are you going to do, I mean, you can pretty much tell whether you're going to win or lose by just pressing tab, looking at the scoreboard, and looking at everyone's levels, and you're like, all right, well, that's how the game's going to go, What aggravates me the most is that it doesn't even try to balance within the game. So it'll do things where it stacks a bunch of level 100s on one side, a bunch of level 10s on the other side. It's like, you could just do some simple math and just try to make it equal,
Yeah.
Put 2 level 100s on this side, 2 on the other side, you know what I'm saying? Like, It's very simple. I understand that it is more complicated to do a whole, to do matchmaking based on rank on a whole queue level where every match has only a certain window of level, but within the match, at least just balance it very simply. That'd be useful. But no, it doesn't do that. Aside from parrying, which is the biggest exploit I said before, there are also ability exploits. I believe nearly every single lightsaber hero has some sort of glitch with them. So, for example, let's take Rey. One of her abilities is called Insight. When you use Insight, Rey does a little animation thing. She's able to temporarily sense enemies through walls, and her attacking, the amount of stamina she uses when attacking is reduced for a certain period of time, right? this is pretty good. Ray's a more offensive character, so this is a sort of offensive ability. Now, when you use Insight, what's going to happen is if the opponent knows anything about the game, is they'll start playing a bit more defensively because they know you're about to go on the offense. They're probably going to start preparing to parry you because they know once you use Insight, you only have that limited amount of time to actually utilize it, right? So you're going to immediately, your instinct is going to be, okay, I'm going to use it now, and I'm going to attack them, right? However, there's a glitch with Ray that allows you to sort of circumvent that. So as I said before, Ray does an animation when she does it. You can prevent the animation from showing if you attack while you use Insight. So if you if you attack and mid lightsaber swing, you use Insight, the animation will never play, and the opponent will never know you use Insight ever. It's a sort of good way to get the drop on somebody. And the thing is, it's somewhat risky because you have to just attack, right? What I usually do is, no one expects you to just attack randomly. Usually you open with an ability or you try to dash around them. I'll just attack. I attack once, intentionally hitting their block. I don't really care, just to use Insight, and I have no idea that I use Insight. So it adds. Is it balanced? Question. What?
That's a glitch, right? Like you're saying that canceled animation is like not built into the game.
Yeah. No, that's not supposed to happen. There's no other hero or villain who can cancel an animation, except Chewbacca. Actually, Chewbacca, the way his ability works, he's the only blaster character whose ability I can think of. Exploit to an ability I can think of. He's an ability where essentially what he does is he charges forwards and he slams his fist into the ground. And he knocks everyone down around him. The ability has a sort of it's not the easiest to just hit anybody because you are forced to run forwards a certain distance, right? So if the person it won't, right? You have to be a certain distance away from you. The exploit you can do is you jump right before you use it. If you jump right before you use it, then the animation of him running forward will never happen, and you'll just use it in the same spot. That's a weird exploit. I don't know why it exists, but yeah. So you can use it to. It's especially useful if you have a lightsaber character attacking you, and Chewbacca, well, you don't have a lightsaber to defend yourself, so if you use that in a station in the same spot you are just in as the enemy is right there, that's pretty useful. Also, a lot of people don't expect it because exploit. But after you get to a certain level, you just expect all the exploits. You figure them all out, and then you realize that nothing is impossible in this game. Aside from Chewbacca's exploit, Rey's exploit is like Yoda's exploit, for example, which this is the only one. I'm not sure if this is an accident, but one of Yoda's abilities is to do a leap where he flies forwards and does he dashes forwards pretty far and does a lightsaber attack. He has another one called Presence, where he is able to heal himself and anyone around him in a short range around him for a certain period of time. You can use Presence while you're in the leap animation. As far as I'm aware, there is no other lightsaber hero except Darth Vader, which I think is intentional, who can use two abilities at the same time. So yeah, that's weird. Then there's Darth Vader, who I think his exploits actually make the game worse. It's one of those cases I'll get to why later. One of his exploits is that one of his abilities is that he can do a force choke, right? And the force choke is already pretty good as it stands. You force choke someone, it does a really big amount of damage. They're stuck in one spot, which means other characters can attack them at the same time. You can lightsaber throw while, that's another ability he has. You can throw his lightsaber. You can do that while he's force choking, meaning that he has a free hit. And he also is basically invincible while he's doing it. I don't know why I decided to do this. He's just a broken character. He's too good. But his exploit is that this one's actually fairly hard to pull off. If you jump at the right time when you're in the middle of the force choke animation, what you'll do is you'll actually jump, which you're not supposed to be able to do when you're force choking, and you'll lift up the person you're force choking with you. And what this does is, when the force choke ends, they'll still be in the air. They'll fall down. They'll be on the ground for a second, and you can get a few hits on them before they get back up on their feet. Darth is a broken character. You should be. I don't know. You should be. But
did they play test this game at all?
It feels like they don't. They actually there've been some like crazy changes over time. So like for example, Darth Maul as a character has been entirely reworked. He used to be the only lightsaber character who could not block. I don't know why. This doesn't make sense to me, but he couldn't block at some point. This was an intentional choice. He was supposed to be a high mobility character who did like hit and runs essentially, right? He wasn't there to stick around for a lightsaber fight. But then he had one of his abilities is a lightsaber throw as well. There were only two characters with lightsaber throw: Darth Vader, Darth Maul. Darth Maul could throw his lightsaber, and it used to be, if you ever watched the prequels, his lightsaber is like a staff almost. It's not like a sword like the rest of them, right? It has blades on going out at both sides, and the way he throw it is if you throw it and you spin it, it becomes a disc, right? Imagine it as a disc. So the old way Darth Maul used to work is the disc would be thrown vertically, right? Such that like it is taller up and down than it is wide.
Yeah.
Right. This makes it pretty hard to hit people because people are pretty tall relative to how wide they are, meaning that you don't actually need the extra height to hit somebody. You'd rather it be wider, right? They changed it so that it actually goes horizontally. In the process, they also he has what's it called? Is it called? I can't remember what it's called, but one of his abilities, he does this like lightsaber spin. He like leaps forwards and spins his lightsaber around him, and he does damage to anyone he comes in contact with. They broke him because essentially there's like a 25% chance that you will hit somebody. You're supposed to hit somebody, but it won't do any damage at all. It's like a unintentional nerf to Darth Maul. It's really annoying when you're about to kill somebody and they're at 2 health. You do it, and nothing happens. It's like, all right, well,
wait. So
I'm a
this
Darth
is
Maul main,
completely random. Doesn't that feel frustrating? Like, to the player.
Yes, that's probably the worst. That's probably my least favorite bug. Actually, no, the Darth Vader thing is my least favorite bug. I actually just hate Darth Vader as a character in the game. But the Darth Maul bug is probably my second least favorite because it actually just I play Darth Maul like probably the most. So it really sucks it's just really unsatisfying. But over time, it's weird because you sort of learn to live with it. Every time I use it, I know like it's like I'm playing roulette. You know what I'm saying? I know there's a chance. You know what I'm saying? Like, so if I want to secure the kill, I'll throw my lightsaber instead if I have that ability ready. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's broken. It shouldn't be like that. But I just think of it as like it's become less of a nuisance and more of an accidental debuff to Darth Maul. It's just it's just like a reality of how things are, which is sad. But and if you're wondering, this game is no longer updated. DICE just dropped it when it was so buggy, and so it could never be fixed. And actually, the Darth Maul bug was introduced. I think it was like literally the last update before they stopped updating it. So it's like, all right, that's unfortunate.
Wow.
But yeah, going through more ridiculous ability exploits, you have General Grievous. Technically, it's not an ability exploit, actually. I actually don't think he has any ability exploits. Let me think. Yeah, I don't think he has one. But he has a weird lightsaber attack exploit. So, okay, so like the reason being he has this weird lightsaber exploit because he works differently than every other character except Bosk. Actually, he works like Bosk with his jumps. So General Grievous, if you didn't know, I believe he's not. Correct me if I'm wrong. He's not force sensitive, right? I believe he is not actually like a proper Sith? Question mark?
No. He's not.
No, I'm wrong, or no, I'm right.
No, he can't. He's not. He can't use the force.
Yeah. Okay, so I thought. Okay, so because he can't use the force, every other lightsaber character can do a force jump, but he can't because he can't use the force. So what he can do instead is just because he's a cyborg. I guess he has enhanced jumping abilities. He can jump high, but not as high as a force user, right? So there's a weird bug where because he's the only lightsaber character who can do that, he can essentially attack faster than he's supposed to be able to by attacking or by jumping than attacking midair. Then when he hits the ground, you jump and you attack midair again. The reason being is because his attack in the air has a very low cooldown relative to his attack on the ground, and because he's not a force user, he falls down very fast. So you can just keep doing this over and over again. I don't know why. So
so you're literally jumping to cool down the you're jumping to cool down the whatever the attack.
You're jumping so that when you attack, the cooldown is less. Yeah, when you jump, the cooldown is less. All right.
None of these
The
are
mid-air
like,
attack has a slower cooldown.
none of these are like satisfying. They don't connect to any lore or anything. They're just not satisfying. They're just broken.
No, no, it's random. The funny part is General Grievous is meant to be a very slow attacker. That's part of his. That's part of his like the way he's built. He's more like a tank character in the game, right? He relies heavily on his abilities. His abilities are pretty good, but his attacking is super slow, and so you can. It's not intentional, but you can parry it pretty easily. As far as that has become part of the game, is that you can parry him pretty easily. But the thing is, I hate General Grievous. Is considered because the game is not balanced at all. General Grievous is considered pretty much by everyone as a top tier character. Maybe if you ranked the order of the best heroes and villains, maybe he'd be between 1 and 3, depending on the person and how they feel about it. But the fact that he can attack extremely fast, because when he does it, I'm pretty sure he probably attacks faster than most other heroes and villains. It is very fast and it's very annoying. That being said, it is hard to pull off. It's not like the timing is kind of hard, and also like you're susceptible to force attacks because you can't block while you're doing it, right? So one of the things when you're doing normal lightsaber attacks is you should always hold the block button so that you immediately go into blocking position right after you do attack. But with that thing, you have that sort of downtime where you're in the middle of jumping or in the middle of falling, whatever, and you're not actually attacking. So I guess that's some con to doing that sort of strategy. But yeah, Anakin is also debuffed just randomly by exploit because he has a ability. Is it called Almighty Push? I think that's what it's called. And what he does is he does a force push in all directions around him, a whole 360 force push essentially. And sometimes what will happen is you press it and he gets stuck in the animation. Like he does it immediately. Normally takes maybe like a quarter of a second, half a second, something like that. Well, if you just press it randomly, it'll be a random chance where it's about 5 seconds where he's just stuck in this position, and every villain's just staring at him like, all right, I'll just wait for you to get out of it and I'll attack you. Luckily, Anakin takes reduced damage while in this state. That being said, you literally just wait for him to finish the animation, right? And he doesn't draw his lightsaber immediately, right? So when he just finishes the animation, you can just attack him. Now, I actually, this is one of the exploits I have a very mixed opinion about, because on one hand, I think Anakin, relatively speaking, is a top tier character. Right, I'd say he's probably around number 4. Right, so I'm like, do I feel bad for getting a free hit on Anakin? I don't know. He's kind of good, If I'm playing someone like Darth Vader or General Grievous, like I will actually just not do anything. I'll literally wait for him to finish. I'll be like, yeah, I get it. Like I'm also a broken character. You just I'll wait for you to finish your thing. I won't bother you about it. What really bothers me is when I'm playing Anakin and someone does it to me and it's like actually attacks me and I'm like, all right. So yeah, I have mixed feelings about that. It'd be better if they just made the character balanced and we had to think about whether it's a good thing or not. But yeah. But for exploits to have more utility, there's like Luke Skywalker's force push. When you jump and you do a force jump, you jump to the apex of your jump. If you use a force push at that moment, you jump higher. I don't know why. It's definitely not purposeful. Lets you get to slightly higher places that you can't get to normally. What else is there? I think Obi-Wan is the only lightsaber character I can think of who has no exploits. And yeah, I think.
See, I don't understand that though, right? Because aren't there just from a programming level, right? Wouldn't there be like functions that are broken that are shared across characters or something like that? Like
like hit detection with Darth Maul. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. How is it different per character?
I don't really get it. Like the Darth Maul thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very strange. A lot of these things make sense why it's specific. Like the General Grievous thing, it's like he is actually the only lightsaber character thing with him. The only character that has a similar jump to him is Bosk, but he has a gun, his blaster, not a lightsaber, so it doesn't really matter for him. That makes sense, but I really don't get how Darth Maul's hit detection is just broken.
Maybe they had a different intern on each hero, like a different person programmed each hero,
Maybe
instead of like sharing functions across. Huh?
It sort
Did
of
you
feels
say?
like that sometimes. Not gonna
Oh
lie.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't like coming from a game developer standpoint. I really don't get how is Darth Maul like that? How is it not just, I'm thinking about any engine I've ever used, right? Like Unity, Unreal Engine, or Godot. Like it's literally just you just make a collider. You make a collider, and when the thing goes through the collider, you execute some code. It really isn't that hard. There's certain things with things moving too fast, but we're not talking about Darth Maul leap speeds of fast. We're talking about bullet speeds of fast. You know what I'm saying? Like we're at the point where the game the game ticks line up such that at some point the bullet is before the collider, and the next tick is after the collider, and you have to do what's called continuous collision checks to detect whether the bullet actually passed through the thing or not. But it's literally just Darth Maul going at higher than normal speed. You know what I'm saying? It's not blaster bolt type speeds and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, I'm trying to think of more exploits, but I'm drawing a blank. There are definitely many more that I can't think of right now. But yeah, all right. Well, um, yeah. So as I said before, the original point was that I think that actually makes the game better. The reason being is I think it adds a lot of depth to the game where there is a lot missing, which is very strange. The game, as I said before, is very simple. You just hook swings and trying to get behind people. With this, it makes things specifically every ability has a lot bigger weight to them. There's a lot more versatility. Every ability, not every ability, but the exploitable abilities have more use. And what this means is you have to think about, okay, when am I going to use this? Am I going to use Luke's force push to get up a little higher now? Because it means I won't be able to use it for however many seconds it takes to come back. Chances are the answer is no, because it actually isn't that useful for Luke specifically. But for people like Ray, it's like, do I want to use insight when like now take the risk of attacking and have them not know that I've used insight, or just use insight and let them know, but I don't take the risk of being parried. In general, you don't want them to know you're using insight. Like this is like sort of what's interesting is it sort of adds more learning to it because at some point you sort of reach the skill cap of Battlefront 2, and it's like, all right, you're just doing the same thing over and over again. But what I love about Battlefront 2 is that I'm always learning, right? I always feel like I'm getting better at the game. At the start, you feel like you'll never get better, and where I am now, I always feel like I'm probably not gonna get better, but I know I will. It just feels like it's always like that. Like with like learning how to use Ray's insight correctly. So I was gonna say before is like you probably want to hide Ray's insight, but when do you not want to do that? There are actually times where you don't want to do that. So for example, if you're at low health, you don't want to risk the being parried at all because it would mean you're literally dead, right? You sort of figure out. What's interesting too is because it's only I believe it's 4v4s. Yeah, 4v4s. You really over the time of the span of the match, you sort of figure out your opponents. You sort of figure out what they're like, what their playstyles are. And so, yeah, whether you hide your insight or not is going to depend on the player actually, who you're attacking. Are they good at parrying? If not, then don't worry about it. Just go for the attack, hide the insight. There are some people who are extremely good at parry and will parry almost all the time. In those cases, don't bother with hiding the insight. You know what I'm saying? Especially if you're at lower health. Maybe only if you're at like max health, you do that. But yeah, stuff like that. I think really adds to the game. Or with a really really simplistic way things work. But yeah, I think although at the same time it sort of makes it bad in the case that there is no rank system, so you're pitting in people who are not only new but don't know these exploits with people who are veterans, have known these exploits, know every single character's exploits, and can expect them to be used against them. And also, just have that acquired skill from playing over and over again after some amount of time. It's pretty bad. It feels like one of those games where you really have to just like you just got to bite your tongue through it. You just have to push through the initial stages of just dying over and over again until you're able to be good. And the unfortunate part is most people will just stop playing because they're like, I don't get why I'm dying. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. These people are doing things that don't make sense to me. And they just leave the game, which is sad. But yeah. But yeah, I think the worst part is that it debuffs like Darth Maul and it buffs Darth Vader and General Grievous. I think there's such I always consider Darth Maul a pretty mid-tier character. He's not trash. He's not the greatest. You know what I'm saying? And it really just pushes the divide even further between certain characters. Like I think Darth Vader and General Grievous are almost undisputed the 1, 2, or 3 on the list, and it really sucks that the game had to be stopped receiving updates when it did, because DICE did keep trying to balance the game. Maybe not well, because we were left in this state, a state with more bugs perhaps than we started with, but at least they were doing something, But now there's really no chance for change, and it just feels bad whenever you play as the light side, you're playing, I don't know, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and then you see who you're versing, and it's like, okay, it's like Kylo Ren, Darth Vader, General Grievous, and it's like, all right, well, I guess I lost. Assuming their levels aren't low. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. Oh, well, one more thing, actually. When Battlefield 3 comes out, they better have pairing be an actual mechanic that is intentional, because everyone uses that, okay? It's good. Actually good addition. It needs to be properly supported. That's it.
Or they'll make the same mistake Microsoft did about porting Minecraft to, was it C++ or whatever they did, making the C version of Minecraft with no glitches, and which sucked every fun bit out of Minecraft, because the fun part of that game is the glitches. So, yeah. Is there a release date on Battlefront 3?
Battlefront 3, I don't believe really has been announced yet. I believe there's some weird things with Lucasfilms and EA and the rights to actually create a Battlefront game, a Star Wars game. I don't remember what happened with that. I'm pretty sure EA is getting kind of, I don't know if they're getting destroyed, but stuff is happening, because also FIFA is also talking about hey, we don't want to pay you this much anymore to make FIFA games or something like that. Or I think maybe EA demanded more. I don't remember, but yeah, FIFA was we don't know. If I recall correctly, FIFA was being unreasonable, but yeah.
I thought that Lucasfilm dropped EA as their exclusive game developer. I think that's what happened.
That might be what it is. I'm looking it up right now. It says EA response to Lucas. This is a headline, by the way, so take it with a grain of salt. January 13th, 2021. EA response to Lucasfilm Games confirming that other studios will be able to make Star Wars titles. So yeah, it sounds like an exclusivity thing. So okay, maybe they are making Battlefront 3, but as far as I'm aware, there's been nothing announced about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, looking it up, I don't. Yeah, it's one of those articles everything we know about Battlefront 3. I'm gonna open it. It's definitely gonna be nothing. Oh yeah, first thing, yet to be officially confirmed. All right, that's always how it is. You look up a game and you add a number to it, right? That hasn't come out yet, and it's here's what you should know about it. And it's you open it, it's we don't know anything about it. I'm why'd you make this article?
To get your clicks, man.
They have a whole 15 things on this website. Yeah, they have 15 things on the website. The first one is yet to be officially confirmed. I mean, all right, 14. Okay, the next thing is the canon story. That's not a surprise. Okay, the Battlefront 2 is canon. I don't know. Okay, returning actors. These are also mildly interesting. Made by DICE. Really, who would have thought? I don't know. It's a bunch of things that are not all too important or are fairly obvious.
Yeah. Cool. Is that it?
Yeah, I guess so. Mm-hmm.
Cool. Ben, you want to reintroduce the podcast? So for people who don't know, we film our entire set of episodes for the week in one sitting here live, which means that you can be part of the conversation if you comment, chat, whatever. We're very, very, very apt to respond live and put you into the final podcast. But that also means that we have to reintroduce the podcast every time to give us a fresh intro for those who don't watch live. So yeah, Ben, you can take it away.
All right. Well, welcome to Mixed Media. If you are joining us for this segment, we are a weekly podcast which is recorded live. I don't know what the correct term is. Recorded live, I guess. Where we each talk about art in general in our different fields. So we've already heard from Nathan earlier today on Star Wars Battlefront 2 and how some of the glitches in the heroes versus villains mode enhance the game. And yeah, so I'm going to be talking about the 20th anniversary of the first Harry Potter film, which was the 20th anniversary of its public release in London was yesterday. So one day late. I know I mentioned it if you're on our Discord server. But that's, from the film music perspective, that's a pretty significant 20th anniversary, I think, for a couple of reasons. But yeah, I mean, I don't know that anyone's gonna like pay. You know, it's not as significant, I think, for the film itself, because I people, you might like Harry Potter, but I'm not sure I've ever heard anyone say that like the first Harry Potter film is a cinematic masterpiece.
Yeah, not really.
Yeah, I mean, it's effective. I really enjoyed it as a kid.
It comes off very much so more like a kid's movie than, something super serious.
Well, to be fair, I mean, the book itself is also that way. But although the books get darker, as much as I can recall. But the films seem to get darker, at a faster pace than the books did. And yeah, I don't know. I've never even seen the last few films. Not worth my time. I know some of the music from them also not worth my time listening to. But the music to the first Harry Potter film, regardless of how you feel about Harry Potter the franchise, and obviously you can have a range of opinions on that for any number of reasons, but the music for this film is a pretty big deal. I would say, and I think you'd be really hard pressed to argue against that it's the most significant film score culturally of the last 20. Well, we'll go back one more year and say of the 2000s. And I really don't think that you can make much of an argument about any other score. It's, there have been a lot of other important scores, a lot of other great scores, and if you're someone who spends your day talking to other people who are immersed in film music, there are a lot of other scores, and people are going to talk about a lot of other scores that are more influential in terms of style and how people write film music. There are other scores that I think people will, the average person, if you talk to them, are going to be aware of. Probably Inception would be number 2. Other film scores that have had their brief moment in the sun, but really for its broad cultural impact, this first Harry Potter, so much greater than any other score. Again, it really is not the most influential score for how people write film music, because it is so tied to the film itself, the world of the film. It's not really something you can use as a palette in most other films. And also, no one else can really write in that way. John Williams is just a genius. You can do things that are, like it, but it's hard to really capture that. But in terms of its cultural impact, I mean, what other film from the past 21 years does everybody know a melody from, right? Everyone pretty much is aware of and can hum Hedwig's theme.
Yep.
It's definitely the most iconic track of any recent film by an enormous margin. And I'll get into this in a few minutes, but there are a number of themes in it that are also iconic. Maybe not at that level, but lots of very singable themes.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, and also just coupled with the fact that the movie itself was a big deal because the books were a big deal at that time too. it has had an enormous impact on a lot of musicians, especially people who were growing up at that time, myself included. I know that it was pretty important for me as a musician in my development when my parents bought me a collection for one Christmas, I think in 5th grade, a bunch of arrangements of Star Wars and Harry Potter music for flute. It's very important for me, like developing the desire to go off and practice, and like not just play. The music was given to me in my middle school band. And just talking to over the years a number of musicians, there are lots of people who that's like hearing this score in particular had a really big impact on them. Star Wars too, even for people of a younger age. I think Star Wars is overall more influential for me, and I think I prefer Star Wars. The music, and that definitely also had an enormous impact on like previous generations. But Harry Potter, very, very important. Definitely more, although the other Star Wars scores around the same time for the prequel trilogy are also fantastic works. None of them have had the same kind of impact as this first Harry Potter score. So I'm just going to read a quick quote from John Williams that's going to illustrate a few things about what he was thinking about with this score. So this is from just after the premiere of the film. So he says, I don't want to have formed images when I see the movie. I live with the film every day. I have the film in my offices and listen assiduously. In this case, because my kids were all reading the books, I read the first Harry Potter book. I never even imagined I would be writing a score for the film. I didn't even know they were planning to make a film when I was reading it. So much of successful film scoring relies on a gratifying melodic identification for the characters. I try to draw on something that marries very well with what I'm seeing. I wanted to capture the world of weightlessness and flight and sleight of hand and happy surprise. This caused the music to be a little more theatrical than most film scores would be. It sounds like music that you would hear in the theater rather than in film. Okay, so there are a couple of important insights there. So the first insight, and we've learned a little bit more about this in other interviews of his, is that unlike other films where he walks in and the director gives him kind of a preview screening of what they have so far. I mean, that's the first time he knows what's going on in the film, really, or at least it's the first time he's kind of like being able to truly imagine it visually. He had read the first Harry Potter book without knowing that it was ever going to be turned into a film, so he already had a sense of like a full sense of the story. And it's interesting to think about how that kind of impacts the writing of the score. I'm not sure I could come up with any specific ways because I don't really know what John Williams' own thoughts on the book were, other than what he kind of says in this quote. But that's significant. So he kind of had a head start on this. Apparently, he got into this scoring this at first by he was asked to write the music for the trailer and not the film, which is unusual to have like a full orchestra recording something significant for their trailer, for a film. And but clearly this was an important enough film culturally, I guess, for what it was at the time, that they asked John Williams, of all people, to write trailer music. And so he had no idea what he was, 'cause he wasn't given like a trailer to look at to score. We had told him just score Harry Potter, like what would sound like a good trailer for Harry Potter. And that's how we got Hedwig's theme. So no reference to any visuals when he wrote that, which is also incredible. That's just him relying on what he read in the book, a few years before to make that. Also, truly remarkable that came into being because, as I've mentioned before, normally, with a film score, you write it, and the deadlines are so close that it literally gets printed. The parts the musicians read get printed, and they're still hot off the printer, and they go right to the musician's stand, and they sight read it. But this trailer music, Hedwig's theme, is so difficult for the violins that they got it done early and sent the music to the concertmaster, and they were not sure that the musicians of the London Symphony Orchestra were going to be able to record this and play it because it was so difficult. And the concertmaster looked at it the day before and was like, it's going to be very difficult to pull off. They spent the entire recording session recording just this one, short-ish track for the trailer. Also with significant contributions from Randy Kerber. He deserves an enormous shout out for all of his work with John Williams, but in particular in this film. Randy Kerber is the keyboardist that John Williams uses, and he's also Williams's synth guy. So he was tasked with creating the iconic, not quite celesta sound that is everyone thinks is the celesta. That is the beginning. It's placed at the beginning of Hedwig's theme.
What's a celesta?
Okay, yeah. So it's a kind of obscure instrument. It's also called celeste, depending on how you spell it. It's most famous for its use in the Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairies.
Oh, okay.
So it's a keyboard that has this kind of like harp-ish sound, and like somewhere between like harp, keyboard, and bells, kind of like a twinkly little sound. Very, very beautiful instrument, can be used to all sorts of great effects, but it is obviously like the heart of this score. And everyone thinks that it's an actual celesta, which is playing at the beginning of Hedwig's theme and throughout the score. It's actually not. There's a very cool video where Randy Kerber shows exactly like what settings he used on which specific synthesizer to come up with this sound, all the different like waveforms he was combining.
I would never have guessed it was an inorganic sound. Like seriously.
Yeah, so it's combining a synth celeste with a couple of other specific waveforms. And I know Randy Kerber talks a little bit about why Williams didn't want the actual celeste. I think it's just something to do with not wanting to sound quite as like light and kind of giving the sense of the Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairies. That's what everyone knows the instrument from. So it's a little bit different than that, but very similar. So again, shout out to Randy Kerber for kind of inventing the actual sound that is kind of the heart of the film, and to the LSO for fantastic recording at London Symphony Orchestra. So I guess after this successful trailer, they asked him to score the film, which he did. Yeah. So this film is kind of interesting kind of juncture, I guess, in Williams's career. Throughout the 90s, he'd been progressively, writing more and more kind of like childlike, innocent film scores, sense of wonder. I mean, mixed in with some other things that are very different too, but things like Hook, and then the first Star Wars Episode 1 with young Anakin. And this is kind of the culmination of that with the music for 11-year-old Harry Potter. It also shares some of the general action style that is very unique to like 1999 for a Star Wars film, Episode 1, not first of the prequels. So that era through the third Harry Potter film, so like about a 5-6 year span in his career right there. 1999, 2004, I guess, where he has a very distinct kind of action writing style for his action cues. So much so that in the second Harry Potter film, which is being written at the same time as the second Star Wars Episode 2, due to what is presumed to be literally someone handing the wrong piece of paper to the orchestrator and copyist. Literally, the music for Chase Through Coruscant is also the music, literally same music for the Quidditch match.
Oh, interesting.
And they don't really sound out of place in either case, because the action writing is just so similar. So very tied to that kind of specific period in his writing, but drawing on a lot of things from his other scores. There's a lot of influence you can see from things much earlier in his career. Empire of the Sun, which I've not seen the film, but again is a film about like a young child and innocence versus the horrors of war. Hook, which is obviously kind of a childish flight of fancy. Home Alone, which is literally like some of the Christmas music in this film, is not quite copy and pasted, but could be copy. You could switch the two. And
is it the one that I just dropped in the chat? That one that you dropped in the Discord?
That should be on. It should be on there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I don't remember what the actual track on the official soundtrack is called. But there's a good example of that in there. So a lot of ties to his other work. So it's not his most original score, I'd say, but overall it's just on a different level than either Hook or Home Alone. And some of the things that really make it so fantastic are the theme. So like I said, we all know Hedwig's theme. Anyone listening probably know it, and if you don't know that by name, I'm sure if you listen to it or anything on the soundtrack, which I know Irving has put a link to in the live stream, you'll probably recognize and be able to sing along with a lot of these themes, which is just something that is so not prevalent in film music of the last 20 years. Very singable themes, which again, it's a John Williams hallmark of his style, but probably even more in this film than even something like Star Wars, where not all of the themes are quite as singable, even if they're memorable. Really, I'd say that of all the big character themes, which he mentions in that quote, he wanted to score characters and big ideas with themes. They're all, I'd say that they're all either home runs or grand slams, except for Voldemort's theme, which that would be the odd one out. And if this weren't Harry Potter, that would be like a very well-received theme, I think. It's not quite as singable, the theme. It's really only occurs twice in the film. It occurs during the Quidditch match when Professor Quirrell is trying to enchant Harry and kill him, by tossing him off of his broom. And it occurs again when Harry faces Voldemort at the end of the film. And that's interestingly, it's the only theme that doesn't really get reused in the second Harry Potter film. In place of that theme, the general theme of like mystery and intrigue and danger, which is just a 3-note pattern that keeps getting built up, that becomes essentially not just mystery and intrigue in the second film, but actually becomes Voldemort. So that theme, kind of a one exception, but it's still a great theme. It's just so far below all the other very well-known themes.
I just listened to a snippet of it now, and yeah, it's not very singable at all. So
Yeah.
it's very different.
It's kind of, if anything, it would have probably worked really well in the later films when like Voldemort, like in the flesh, comes back, and like because it's kind of got this like slimy, snake-like
Yeah,
quality to it.
it's
Yeah.
definitely very dark. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. But obviously, so he doesn't generally have themes for like specific characters, he kind of says that in his quote. We have themes like the broomstick, Nimbus 2000, which again you can pull that up and just listen to it. Like there's 10 seconds of that, and you'll probably recognize that if you listen to it. We have that 3-note mystery theme. We have the theme of like the chords that are like the mystery and majesty of Hogwarts. There's literally the Hogwarts school song, which is a really interesting piece. He's clearly going after like this British, like old school, like Cambridge or Oxford, like that sort of feel. This really wonderful theme, which I guess you could kind of associate with just the concept of family, and it progresses in its coloration and its harmony from places where Harry feels like the absence of his family. We get this kind of really bittersweet, kind of dark version of it when he goes to the mirror of Erised and sees his parents in the mirror, and then eventually at the end of the film when he kind of realizes that Hermione and Ron are his real family now. Give this really triumphant version of it at the end of the film. So really fantastic theme. There's also a whole bunch of themes that are associated with Quidditch. Very regal and kind of stately British march feel to a lot of that, which makes sense because we're at a British boarding school. Yeah, so a lot of really fantastic themes. I think that's what kind of elevates this score, in addition to just all the really beautiful colors that he's giving us. Like you said, that sense of weightlessness and wonder, and then this sleight of hand, which is interesting way to describe it. There are a lot of moments that are like that in this film, where we get this sense that like, although this is like, we're like, wow, I'm entering this beautiful and like strange and wonderful world of magic. He's also reminding us that like, yeah, but these are also 11-year-old kids who are like taking Eve, Newton, Toad, Frog, and like, that's so cool, let's go mix them up together.
Yeah.
And he gives us some of that with, there are all sorts of like weird harmonic moments where you get like slightly wrong notes, and it's really effective when that happens. And I could point to some specific moments in the score, but like even in the Hogwarts theme, where we get it like a stately version, like the Hogwarts school song, like a stately presentation of it, and they do it again, but there are a couple of wrong notes in the horn, and like, but like intentionally so, and in a way that's not gonna like, you're not gonna listen to it and say like, wow, that's like sounds disgusting, but it's just like slightly off.
That's so interesting.
A lot of really cool things like that. I think my favorite moment in the score actually is this really cool transition where we go from they're like on the boats approaching Hogwarts for the first time, and it's like lit up with all these bright lights, and you got the dark silhouette of the castle, and maybe this beautiful choir chords with sorts of woodwind sweeps, very, very mysterious but also grand. And then we get the film cuts to, I'm gonna get the guy's name wrong, but like the guy who's like the ground, not he's like the,
oh, is it Filch?
Filch, yes, Filch. Thank you. I'm just with an F. Filch and his cat, who has a name too.
Yeah, the
Um,
cat has like a real human name. I forget what it is.
yeah. So we cut to that and we see like we like, kind of go over his shoulder and like you see him and then the cat like walks down the stairs and that the music right there is this weird solo violin. I think it's scordatorus or like the strings are tuned differently than they normally are. um I know I've read some analysis of this from some other people who know a lot more about the composer Bartok than I do. That it's very influenced by Bartok at that moment, but it's just this weird, like again,
I've
it's
heard of
like
that.
sorry, what Nathan?
I, yeah, I heard that name. Is it Bartok, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I've heard that. It's interesting. I heard that name. Not because I think I didn't even know it was a person. I knew of it because they I downloaded a essentially a instrument sample pack, play essentially digital instruments, whatever. And it
Hmm.
had something. It was like a string, and it had several modes to it. And one
Yeah.
of them was Bartok.
Bartok pits. Oh, okay. There's something called the
Yes,
Bartok
yes.
pizzicato, um, which is a specific kind of like pulling the string up and snapping it back. Um,
Yeah, that's
so
what it sounds like.
yeah, so and that's which is weird because you get like we go from this really grand full orchestra and choir and this beautiful kind of like texture to this like solo violin. It's doing something that's like slightly harmonically off the like lower strings, just supporting it, and it just I don't know. It's my favorite part of the film because not only do we have this contrast, like I mean, obviously the music I think makes that scene because otherwise it's just this kind of shabby looking guy with a cat. But here we go, like with the music. Yes, Hogwarts is this like grand thing that we've heard about, but now here's like this kind of guy who seems kind of like an enemy, but not really. But like clearly there's something off with like this wizardry that he does and his cat, and I don't know. It's a very cool moment in the film. Um, yeah. So there's so many great things in it, but overall, I think that the main cultural impact, even more than just like how colorful of a score it is or how weird some of those moments are, just how memorable and singable all these themes are, especially Hedwig's theme. Um, and it's not. I don't think it's his most original score. I don't think it's necessarily Williams' best score either. I'll take a lot of a Star Wars over it, but that's kind of my personal opinion. Um, but it's the perfect score for the film. I think it is a far better score than the film itself is. It's definitely more iconic than the film itself is. Um, and yeah, but it just does what it's supposed to do so well. And for a film which was at the time, must see, a big event. I mean, I was a little too young to appreciate the actual premiere, although I certainly remember watching it on DVD shortly afterwards. Um, yeah, perfect score for a kind of cultural event film, and I think that the music has kind of transcended the film itself. So yeah, big 20th anniversary to that. It's kind of crazy, but it's 20 years old now.
Yeah, that
um
is nuts.
yeah, so good opportunity to look back on it. I know I haven't talked as much about Harry Potter as I have about Star Wars on our show, so that would be a good opportunity to talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, for sure. People are going to
I
be
didn't actually
also.
know that.
Oh, go ahead.
I, I didn't actually know that Harry Potter was older than me slightly. I I knew I didn't like remember it like becoming into existence, right? But I just figured I was alive at that point. But I couldn't actually remember. But actually, he's older than me. Interesting.
Yep, it's pretty insane. It's good timing too because everyone's about to see Harry Potter on during like Thanksgiving and holiday seasons perpetually on TV as usual. um, yeah, if you know what I mean, Nathan, seeing
Yeah, the AB is on ABC, right? It's like they just show Harry Potter forever, like right before Christmas for some reason. I don't know why
yeah,
it's a tradition, but
basically from Thanksgiving, to Christmas, you're gonna watch Harry Potter over and over again on ABC, uh, whatever ABC Family or whatever the channel is. Yeah, cool.
yeah,
Um,
I got that. We gotta make like a good Harry Potter game. Doesn't exist. Well, there are Harry Potter games. They are quite old, probably around as old as the movie or the book. Never played any of them. I think they might be well reviewed, maybe. I'm not sure, but you know, I mean, it wouldn't hurt to make a modern Harry Potter game. So much opportunity. You know what I'm saying? I can envision all the possibilities. And it's such a cool universe.
yeah, I agree. I will never forgive them though for the last two films of the series, which, like, I mean, the last I read the books. I probably read them twice or something like that. The series, it feels like forever ago, but I can't forgive what they did to the last book of the series, which was to absolute cash grab it and turn it into two films instead of one. And it really should not have been two films. From what I remember watching, I remember being like, "This doesn't feel right at all. Nothing about this feels right at all." And I didn't have the tools to understand why, but I really think it comes down to like a change of pace that just feels completely unnatural from the sixth film, into the seventh and eighth. Is like all of a sudden we're spending time with details that we've never spent time with, and it just feels wrong. So yeah, really bad finale in my opinion. Also, they changed the ending like in the most odd manner possible. Like I was like, why would you do that? Like the ending of Harry Potter actually has like a lot to think about, and then they changed it in such a way that it was kind of like a typical heroes win sort of thing, but it wasn't as contemplative as the book is at the end. But yeah. Okay. News. Do y'all have news?
Forgot news. Let me grab some news while you guys say stuff.
Ben, do you have views?
I don't have anything for this week in particular, and then I trying to remember what I had for last week. I wrote it down, but I can't find it. So,
Okay. So while you guys are thinking, I'll go over some interesting things. I'll start with the thing that everyone actually, I'm going to start with the more peripheral stuff. So the first piece of news is that Criterion, which is they're a publisher of films, particularly with physical media. Maybe one day in the future, if I can build the empire, I would love to buy the Criterion collection, like just literally just buy the company out. I think it's an amazing company. They do amazing work. And with the Criterion collection, they have a half off sale. I think it's from now until Thanksgiving ? Or like sometime a little bit after Thanksgiving. But they're half off of a lot of films. I've talked about physical media before, so if you want to get some really high quality Blu-rays, you can get them for a half price. So I'm planning on buying Stalker, which I'm really excited about. I think Ben has mentioned it briefly before, Tarkovsky's Stalker. And I'll also be getting... Oh, you're muted.
That is a fantastic film.
Yeah, I've heard so much good.
Although I watched it in a movie theater, and I don't think it'll be the same if you don't watch it in a theater.
I believe you. Unfortunately, I don't know. I don't know who's going to screen it next. But yeah, so I'm going to buy Stalker, and I'm going to buy... What was the second film I was going to buy? It was a Scorsese film. It was The Age of Innocence. That's the other film I'm gonna buy. So half off Criterion Collection. Go check it out. I thought I'd let you guys know. The second thing is that what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, the second thing is that it's still relevant. Go check out my video about inflation, more relevant than ever, because I've been more and more right as time goes on, which always feels nice. But I might retread ground on that sometime in the future, maybe in some weeks from now, whenever I run out of an idea to talk about stuff, because I think I have a formal prediction to make again, so that I can be right again. But I'm going to hold off on that until I feel super confident in my little prediction. But it's all entertainment, not financial advice. So there you go. And the last thing is there are a few interesting updates in the Alec Baldwin story, the death of Helena Hutchins. I did a 3-part series on it if you want to check it out. I would recommend you watch them in order. I didn't reintroduce them, so I think some people might not know that there's an actual order that you're supposed to watch them. I recommend you watch them in order and don't get confused. If you just listen to the end bit and you're like, there's no information, it's just us talking about it, then you're going to be seriously confused as to what the heck we're talking about. So there's that. But, so, I said there's going to be changing information, and that's exactly what's happened. So a few things. Alec Baldwin keeps tweeting, which is a very seriously bad idea. About the incident. He even got stopped on side of the road by paparazzi. Not his fault, by the way. He was literally being like stalked, like by the literally he's on vacation. They're literally like following him around in their car, which is, that's garbage, right? So, he's getting stalked. I would not have recommended him pull over the side of the road and talk to them, though. That is very inadvisable. And he said some interesting things. He basically said, I can't talk about it, then went on to talk about it, which was kind of odd. And then he keeps tweeting about it, one of which was a Instagram, a picture from the wardrobe person's Instagram. So the wardrobe person on set has a private Instagram. So Alec Baldwin clearly follows this person. That's the only way you could see the private Instagram post. But then he makes it public. I hope he got permission for that, which alleges that the crew was all complaining for no reason, that the conditions were actually really good, that the only people who were mad were in the camera department, who wanted to, they weren't satisfied with the lavishness of the hotel, and that's why they went on strike, and that the set ran like clockwork, which is what Alec Baldwin has been saying. That's why he would repost, right, that private message. Now, I'm not sure I believe this. I'm gonna say my instinct is that just sounds like a load of garbage. Given the fact that there's a paper trail behind the complaints of the conditions, and that paper trail went all the way up to the union. And there are certain things that I just wouldn't be able to understand as much. Like, it's not as though filmmakers are like unionized crew is pretty sensitive about union rules, and that's fine. But this is a different kind of thing where people are quitting left and right. So, and that's not normal. Like, people don't generally find it convenient to walk off set, the day before, and go through the trouble of joining a film just to walk off, one day. So I don't know about that one, Chief. And I'm not sure if the wardrobe person is in the best place either to comment on, the general crew's, satisfaction and whatnot. So I thought that was strange. Then this other strange thing is that Hannah Reed, the armorer, came out with a statement. Remember I said that she was working 2 jobs? Her lawyer said that she was working 2 jobs, and I wasn't sure if that was like her being the armorer and having to make the blanks. Well, they clarified that. They said it wasn't that her second job was actually she was the prop master when the previous prop master had quit. Remember I said that prop master had walked off? So she was temporarily also the prop master while they were finding a new prop master. And it sounds like she was acting like assistant prop master while the original prop master was there. So she was assistant prop master and armorer, which is insanity. Which is a really bizarre thing. So that's what her lawyers are saying. The lawyers are saying a lot of things, which kind of surprises me, but I think they're angry at Baldwin's PR team for basically throwing her under the bus immediately, and they're just trying to, like, throw up everything they can in the way of that to try to change the conversation and, all that kind of stuff. They're doing what they're supposed to do for their client, which is throw smoke. And the lawyers also claimed that she was not on set when this all happened, which I find utterly bizarre. That she wasn't even on set when this whole thing went down, which I don't think that, I think it just raises more questions than it answers anything.
Yeah, because wasn't the thing that, like, she gave the gun to, was the director? I forget.
No. So she put the protocol, their COVID protocol was that she would have to sanitize.
She put it on the cart, correct?
Yeah, she put it on the cart, right? And
I just figured she, like, immediately rolled the cart over, though. No, it's just on a cart, like.
I mean, yeah, I mean that's what you would think, but apparently this cart was just floating around, and I just feel like that just adds a different kind of culpability, which is, why'd you let the cart float around without supervision? It might decrease.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine too that, like, I mean, I don't know, because this is after all these people had already walked off the set, right? And I mean, I don't know, maybe they just, like, figured they weren't even gonna, like, bother telling her that they're, like, we're restarting shooting for the day or something like that, and, like, oh, we have a gun, it should be, like, functional because they were firing it earlier or something like that. I'm just trying to think if something that would make sense.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I feel like. Whatever new details come out, like, what? Just trying to make sense.
Yeah, they didn't like. I don't know. Maybe I'm just pure speculation. I'm just imagining maybe they're like, well, clearly we know from experience that these guns are working today, so they should be fine or something like that. I don't know. And they didn't bother, like, to call the armor in or something.
Yeah, that's very possible. Yeah, that is very possible. Yeah, that would definitely help her case, the armorer's case, for sure. If she put them away and then they went and retrieved them themselves to start practicing and blah blah blah. Yeah, that would actually help her case. So yeah, I guess the lawyers are doing a good job giving her an out. But she also said that the lawyers said, I should say, she's been doing the right thing, which is keeping her mouth shut. But her lawyers have been saying that someone possibly sabotaged the gun by inserting a real bullet in there, which is a very grandiose claim. It's a very big claim. It's a very, conspiratorial claim. It's not, I'm not the kind of person, just to be clear, that just because it's a conspiracy, that means it's not possible. It's just the kind of thing where it's like, the circumstances give you the easier explanation, which is simply that everything was so negligent that this was practically bound to happen. We talked about it in the 3-part series, and I would need to understand why, other than what they're saying is that maybe people were so disgruntled that someone, put a real bullet in the mixture at some point. They don't name when or what happened. They're also her lawyers, so,
I mean, even if that did happen...
She's still responsible.
Well, sure, but even if that did happen, I mean... When that, based on what you were saying, like, Alec Baldwin would have, final, like, look in the gun and, like, that kind of thing, like, unless you're also, like, claiming that he was in on it, like, or just being negligent, and that, like, what would have happened if he hadn't, right? So that's a bold clue. Now you're implicating Alec Baldwin too.
I really do. What it sounds like to me is because Baldwin's lawyers and PR team, because if you're really rich and famous in Hollywood, that you hire these, you have these crisis management teams that you have on on retainer. So you give them $100,000 to hold, and in an emergency they come to your defense, create a whole PR thing, and everything just works like clockwork from there, and you don't worry about it. And surely he has one, and well, he does have one, and they've been doing their job, which is to try to cast away any negative press in his direction, which has been including, throwing her under the bus repeatedly, the armor, and blaming everything on her. There's a lot of speculation that, I can't confirm that, that PR team also is responsible for leaking her TikTok to try to make her look more juvenile, because she has some interesting stuff posted on there with her playing with guns. Now, I don't think it's that relevant, that particular thing, because you can pose for a TikTok video with a firearm that you checked and it's responsible. That's not what anyone's arguing. Everyone's arguing about what happened that day. That's the only thing that really matters. But, so there's a whole bunch of shenanigans going on. So I have a feeling her lawyers are just trying to counteract the PR, storm that is coming at her, and trying to throw up as much counter distraction as possible in the opposite direction. And her dad is probably quite wealthy, so I'm sure these lawyers are quite good at what they do. So that's what I'm going to assume. So another complication that there were armed guards on set, which I think was interesting. I don't know if that's also smoke being thrown up, because I don't see how that's relevant, but I guess there could have been a magic bullet that came from one of the guards' guns and somehow entered I don't know. I feel like this is all just throwing stuff in the air to try to avoid culpability on most people's behalf as possible. Now, I have there's a Hollywood insider who has been talking to a lot of assistant directors in LA about Alec Baldwin, trying to get their take on what it's been like to work with him in the past. And apparently there are two types of actors: those who actually check the gun and those who don't check the gun. And according to these ADs, he's never been known to check the gun. So that's a big L in his corner. And given what happened, I think that makes sense, and given what he said afterwards, it kind of makes it feel like it was never habitual for him to actually do any safety precautions. Now, that goes to what I was saying before about seniority and intimidation and stuff like that. At a certain point, you just got to say, I don't care if you're Alec Baldwin or Joe Schmo off the street, you have to follow the rules. And I'm sure he's just been used to not having to follow the rules because he's Alec Baldwin. I guess this is how he had to learn his lesson, if he even learns a lesson from this. And the last detail, which I think is interesting for context, is that day, the scene that they were filming was a gigantic shootout. It was the climax of the entire film. It was there were going to be hundreds of blanks being fired that evening in this shootout that was supposed to be super visceral. The particular shot that they were shooting was a point of view shot, from, I guess, a victim. I'm not sure. Or a victim in that was poor phrasing, sorry, by, a character who's supposed to be a victim that they were setting up, which is why he was shooting in the direction of the camera. What were you saying?
Could have become quite the victim then, huh? If he didn't practice before, right?
Yeah. So that's interesting context. So it would have been a chaotic day. It was probably the most packed, terrible day of the entire shoot. The whole production was probably revolving around this day, is what it sounds like. So I'm sure everyone was stressed, and I'm going to assume the crew was unhappy for legitimate reasons, because I don't think a lot of stuff makes sense if they weren't. And so that probably didn't help the scenario. Plus, that makes sense why, if she was making blanks on set, she would have 500, rounds. Maybe she was making those on the fly because they needed them ASAP and there was no time to make them. I don't know. It's all speculation. Now, last thing I'll say is there are a ton of details out there about some really odd stuff that I didn't have time to verify and stuff like that. It gets into a weird territory at a certain point where I'm like, okay, well, in order for me to repeat any of this stuff, I think I would need to read, some primary source stuff and really understand what people are talking about. But I would say it's pretty typical for Hollywood, this kind of shenanigans, but I won't talk about it now. And maybe down the line, no guarantees, I'll make a follow-up episode about it if it's turns out to have any legs to stand on. But there's some, it's nasty. I'll put it that way. It's typical Hollywood stuff. So there you go. That's my news update.
Given that the day was going to be the day of the big shootout, I don't know anything about this other than what you told me, but if there was a time to slip in intentionally a real bullet, that would be the time. Also, at the same time, if there was a time to do it, for a mistake to happen, I guess it'd also be the same day, so maybe it doesn't mean anything, It's either way. Either way, the chances of both are amplified on that day.
I mean, it's pretty ballsy, right? How mad do you have to be to put a real round in the mixture of you're crazy.
People have done crazier things, but people have done crazier things.
I mean, you have to be so mad you're murderous. That's literally what that
especially
means.
Especially if you.
Not necessarily. I guess in theory, you could hoped that you weren't gonna act. No one was actually gonna get hurt. It would just be a statement, see how really unsafe this set is. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess so.
It would be interesting it'd be interesting if the first shot of the scene was not meant to be shot at anybody. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't know. Say in the planning, the first shot was meant to be, say, a warning shot in the story, right? Then someone would be like, "Oh, well, I'll put one bullet that's real in this thing, all right?" And obviously, this is speculation, pretty wild speculation. Could be any number of things, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll start to give it credit once they produce some tangible. They don't have to say that who did it, right? They just have to show me something, anything at all besides we assert that this is what happened because the crew is so mad, which just kind of sounds. I mean, they're her lawyers, right? It's the best thing that casts away doubt on her performance, right? Is some sort of nefarious activity that has nothing to do with her, right? That she couldn't stop, right? Or something like that. Whether that's true or not, I am completely open to, trust me. It's just, I don't know. We don't really have information that would confirm it at all. Also, that private message on Instagram just read like a load of crock. And it just makes me sick because I feel like Baldwin and his PR team are playing games, and that's what it looks like, at least. And it's not the kind of thing. Oh, and the husband filed a gigantic lawsuit as predicted, basically against everyone. He's probably going to keep adding people one by one to this lawsuit until he's amassed the entire production practically. So, which is what he should be doing, because that's pretty much what happened. Is the entire set is complicit, not literally everyone, but the atmosphere, is practically complicit in killing her. So, yeah, I don't know. It's just, I hate how people deal with this kind of stuff, and it's pretty nasty to me that Alec Baldwin would engage in that kind of stuff when I don't think it's likely that the set was actually run well. 21-day shoot, $6 to $7 million. It just doesn't even sound on its face like something that would be run well. So, yeah. Was there music news?
Yeah. So two people, two deaths. Both the conductor, famous conductor Bernard Haitink, who is kind of famous in the classical world, conducted pretty much most of the world's best orchestras, including the London Symphony Orchestra from I'm not sure exactly what year, but until 1979, so through the late 60s, I think, through 79. So he's for film music relevant to, in a sense that even though he didn't conduct Star Wars, and Williams obviously conducted the London Symphony Orchestra for the original film. very responsible for the sound of the orchestra at that time and the overall cohesion and playing of all the players. So important in that sense for film music, but just a very important figure in music. And also John Ashton Thomas, who's a orchestrator and conductor. Has done a lot of big things recently, including working on conducting and orchestrating Black Panther. But most notably, he's kind of the biggest contributor to the orchestration team of John Powell. So he just died at the age of 60. So
that's pretty young. Yeah. Yep. Was there any gaming news at the end of the day?
Yeah. So, yeah, pretty related actually. It's about Harry Potter. I was literally talking about Harry Potter games not existing in the modern world. Well, apparently one came out 2 months ago for mobile.
Oh.
And apparently it made $228 million in 2 months. I've never heard of this thing. I don't know how. It's not even out in the US. It's only out in certain parts of Asia. It's a lot of money. I don't know how they know that. So, like, I'm gonna take that with a grain of salt. I literally was like, it's like, how do you know this? I'm trying to find out, but I just stopped trying at some point. Aside from that, this is related to what I was talking about before about FIFA and its feature with EA. And I found an article saying, headline being 2K discusses buying FIFA football license from EA, right? Now, I went down like the sources, and that is a very misleading headline. It is true, technically, yes. They did discuss buying FIFA football license from EA. But I only found one line where they mentioned FIFA, and it's not even like, it was like all right, I'll just read the line. So there was some interview going on with some dude from Take-Two CEO. Take-Two owns 2K. And it says, blah, blah. It says, hold up. Yeah, at the end of the article, it says, oh, wait, I lost it. Oh, no. I have like a bunch of tabs open, literally just following, because one article will say sources another article, and I'll say sources another article, and I'll be just going through them. So I have a bunch of tabs open. I actually think I lost it. Dang, okay. Well, but it really was like something like, someone asked him about, what do you think about like FIFA? And he's like, I don't know, maybe, like something like that, Clearly, like, he's not really, oh, I found it. Okay, here it is. He said, the question was, okay, I don't think it says the question, but someone asked him about soccer games, and 2K, or Take-Two at least, does own a soccer mobile game called Top 11. And then later he added, it says, quote, that's a big step forward for us. We haven't been in that spot before, and I think I'll leave it at that today. The quote doesn't even say he ever mentioned the word FIFA. Ever.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so make sure, this is just the announcement. I was reading r/gaming news, and one of the things they have on r/gaming news as a rule is that the title you put as your for your Reddit post must be verbatim the title of the article that you're linking. All right, Be careful. That's a very misleading thing. So yeah.
No, headlines are never misleading. How can this be? All right, is that it? Cool. Well, thank you for tuning into Mixed Media Live on this fine Friday evening. Enjoy your weekends if you're still watching live. Also, if you're watching in post, subscribe if you enjoy any of this stuff, any of this information. We love talking about our respective fields and discussing it with other people. And I'm excited to really jump on this podcast and try to make it something even bigger and more special going forward than it already has been. But thank you for everyone who's stuck around with us. Especially thank you to Rob Sharma, who made it possible for us to be streaming on Rumble Live today. You can join him on mixedmedia.locals.com for a whole bunch of perks that I won't bore you with. Just got to go to the link, mixedmedia.locals.com. Every link you could possibly need is in the description. So there's no excuse for not finding our Discord, finding our Instagram, anything that you want. Our Discord is awesome. We talk about, news. We talk about our respective art stuff, throughout the week, and we continue the discussions there. So with that, see you next time.
Bye.
Thanks for listening.